Hi all. First of all, let me welcome you guys to the J English channel of An Academy, which is India's largest online learning platform for IIT. And on this channel, everything is being taught to you completely in English, be it any concept of physics, chemistry, or maths. So today we are going to discuss about Newton's laws of motion, and this is quick review part one for Newton's laws of motion. So today, you guys are seeing the recorded version of this lecture because yes, I have taken off due to Diwali, and I hope everybody here is enjoying Diwali. But to ensure that your learning doesn't stop, we are uploading a recorded video. All right, so before we get started with today's video, let me introduce myself for those of you who might not know who I am. So my name is Rohit Dikshit, and I studied mechanical engineering from IIT Delhi. And for almost past 8 years, I've been teaching physics for the IITJ exam. Now, all this teaching so far had been offline, and this is the first time that I'm teaching online, courtesy an academy, and let's hope it goes well for both you and me. So I myself was All India rank 447 and All India rank 192 in the two stages of the IITJ exam that I had taken. So right now you guys give mains, and if you qualify mains, then you take advance. So these are the two stages that you guys go through for the J exam. So similarly, we also used to have other two stages. All right. So in the first stage, I secured an All India rank of 192, which is an objective paper. In the second stage, which was a subjective paper, I had secured an All India rank of 447. And that is how I got admission into IIT Delhi in mechanical engineering. Now, I also qualified as a student in the NTC Stage 2, and I was in the top 1% in the NSCP exam. Now, I've already coached many students to top ranks in the IITJ exam, both mains and advanced. And I hope to continue doing that here online with you guys. So, how can you guys make sure that even in this lockdown, your studies don't catch a break and you're not lagging behind? So, as I said, so this time has forced all of us to adapt. So I also moved to online teaching. So that is what you can also do as your students. So you can get yourselves the Unacademy subscription, and this subscription will get you great benefits like live classes. You get to interact with your educators. You have live polls and leaderboards. You will have test series and analysis, and of course, you'll have live doubt clearing sessions. So this is one great feature of the Unacademy subscription, that all your courses plus courses on the Unacademy Plus will have compulsory live doubt clearing sessions. So every fourth session is a live doubt clearing session after three teaching sessions. So that ensures that your doubts are always taken care of. And on top of all these benefits, An Academy provides you the opportunity to study from the best educators all across India from the comfort and safety of your home. So hurry up, get the subscription, and when you get the subscription, these are the courses that are ongoing on Plus, and these are hosted by the J English team. So these are what you can enroll and be a part of. So there are three courses which are meant for 2022 aspirants, or any aspirant which is looking to revise or strengthen class 11 topics. So I myself am taking an advanced course in mechanics, so which, trust me, will be a great help for your JEE preparation. It will help you master mechanics. And there are two other courses, one for maths, which is taken by Abhinav sir, and one for chemistry, which is taken by Rahul sir. Then for 2021 aspirants or class 12 students, you have another four courses, including one that I'm taking for which is advanced course on electromagnetism. Then there are three other courses who are for class 12 topics, one by Abhinav sir, one by Rahul sir, and finally one by Murli sir. So hurry up, get your subscriptions and enroll in these courses. So how do you do that? Very simple. First, you'll need to install the Unacademy app. Once you have done that, go to the plus section of your app, select your goal as IIT and click on that get subscription button. So that is how you can ensure that you can enroll in these courses. Now, Unacademy is also pleased to announce the Unacademy Combat. This is the most competitive exam getting gamified. So this is the IIT battle which you can join, and you can compete live and win rewards and prizes also. So the next Unacademy Combat is going to happen, being hosted on the 22nd of November. So make sure you enroll in that now, and you can use my code RDLife to enroll in that Unacademy Combat and win yourself prizes. All right. Those of you who are following us on the J English channel of YouTube can connect with us on the Telegram app using this link. So connect with us on the Telegram app and make sure that you're not missing out on any of the lectures or amazing sessions that are being hosted on the J English channel of the YouTube. Okay. So moving forward, let's get started with this Newton's laws of motion quick review part one. So this is meant for any aspirant of 2021 who is looking to quickly revise class 11 topics. All right. So let's get started then. So first, let's talk about Newtonian mechanics. So mechanics, first of all, is a branch of physics which deals with analysis of motion and its causes. Okay. So that is what mechanics is. So mechanics in mechanics we earlier studied about kinematics, and the next branch of mechanics is dynamics. Dynamics deals with the cause of motion, and first part was the analysis of motion. Now the entire study of mechanics can be divided, or the dynamics rather, can be divided into three parts. So cause study of cause of motion is done in three ways. So one is called classical mechanics, or also known as Newtonian mechanics. So this is all the part of the mechanics which is based on Newton's laws. Then you have relativistic mechanics, which is based on Einstein's principle of relativity. And then you have quantum mechanics, which is explained or analyzed with the help of quantum physics. So only this part is in your JEE syllabus. So we will only focus on classical or Newtonian mechanics in this course. All right, and that is going to be our area which we will study in detail. So entire theory of Newtonian mechanics revolves around the idea of forces. You already know that. Right. So before we start, we need to study and understand forces first. So let's get started with forces. What are forces? So what do you understand by forces? So you can see here. So two guys are pulling a rope. They are applying some kind of force on it. So our basic understanding of forces is that force is an external activity which pushes or pulls a body, or and hence it tends to either change the state of rest or uniform motion of the body. It may also try to deform a body. Okay, so these are the effects of the force, and the basic definition that we understand right now, or that we will refer to, is that force is any kind of push or pull. Okay, so that is how you will know something is a force. Now, all forces in nature can be categorized into four categories, and these are called fundamental forces of nature. So, it turns out all forces are can be categorized in these four categories. So first you have category that you have is electromagnetic force, then you have gravitational force, then you have weak nuclear forces, and finally you have strong nuclear forces. Now please note both these forces only exist inside nucleus. Okay, so these two forces exist inside the nucleus. Okay. Now, rest of the forces that you practically notice, any force that you practically notice, are one of these two. So either electromagnetic force or gravitational force. So these are, again, how do they arise? They arise via either electromagnetic interactions between two bodies or gravitational interactions between two bodies. Okay, so we will study about these two in detail. We will also talk about this force a bit. Okay, in class 12th you study about this force a bit. You don't really study weak nuclear force much. Okay, so basically, just let me tell you that all electromagnetic forces are caused by charges. Okay, so let's start writing some important bits about every force. So all the electromagnetic phenomena, or all the forces of electromagnetism, they are caused by charges. Okay, so caused. Okay, maybe you should use a different color. Wait, let's switch to a better color which is more visible. Hmm. Okay, take this. Maybe we can try this. So caused by charges. Yeah, that seems better. So these forces are caused by charges. So if a body has charge, then it can experience and exert electromagnetic forces. Okay. Similarly, gravitational forces are caused by mass. So if you have mass, then you can experience and exert all kind of gravitational forces. So caused by mass. Okay. Now, weak nuclear interactions are usually seen only in nuclear reactions, during nuclear reactions. Okay, and strong nuclear forces are exerted between. These are the forces exerted between protons and neutrons. This is the force that keeps those protons and neutrons bound together inside the nucleus. Okay, so exerted by protons and neutrons. Okay, and a weak nuclear are generally exerted by other subatomic particles. Okay, For instance, your neutrino, a very, very famous uh, subatomic particle, it exhibits this kind of force. It can experience weak nuclear force, okay, exerted by other subatomic particles. Okay, so please remember that. Okay, all right. So, on a macro level, however, these forces can be categorized into two categories. One is called field force or non contact force. So, for these forces, any contact is not necessary. And then you have contact force. So, for them, a practical contact is needed. Okay. This is going to be our broad categories of forces. So, first we have fundamental forces and non fundamental forces. These are the four fundamental forces. Now, please note all forces that you study are in one form or the other one of these forces. Okay, so all forces are one or the other form of the fundamental forces. Okay, forms of these forces. Okay, remember this. You generally do not see much about classification of these forces, but you should definitely know this. Okay, then we have another categorization of forces, which is field forces or non-contact forces versus contact forces. Okay, again, one small little question. So you know that Newtonian mechanics has a lot of errors, right? Which had been introduced by Einstein, right? So why are we still studying this? So turns out for practical life, these are applicable. This applies is or becomes, or I can say that effects of relativistic mechanics, effects of relativistic mechanics become significant only when the speed of the particles that we are observing, the v, becomes comparable to c. It has to be close to c, at least c by 10 or greater than c by 100. Okay, so let's write it like that. So then only you find that this has any significance. Otherwise, this can also always be ignored. So v should be comparable to c. Okay. Otherwise, we can ignore the effects of relativistic mechanics. Similarly, quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, the effects become significant only for microscopic particles. For bigger particles, I can always ignore the effects of relativistic mechanics. The effects become significant. So it's not like that. Quantum mechanics does not govern our motion. It does, turns out. Okay, and relativity also can be applied to our motion, but the effects are not too significant. They can be ignored. Okay, all the theory of relativistic mechanics and quantum mechanics can be ignored. It cannot be ignored under two conditions. So effects become significant for microscopic particles. If you're dealing with microscopic particles, then yes, there is no way you can get rid of the effects of quantum mechanics, or you have to consider quantum mechanics. Your Newtonian mechanics will fail. Okay. Similarly, if the particles that you're dealing with or your reference frames, any speed is comparable to the speed of light, then you have to consider the effects of relativity. Okay. Otherwise, in practical circumstances, these work just fine. Okay, and except for these two considerations, for any other practical scenario, Newton's laws can describe motion or analyze motion very, very finely. And it's the easiest way to analyze also. So that is why we are still studying it. All right, so let's talk about some common forces. So these are some common forces. The first is weight. This you know is the force. What is the weight? Force with which Earth attracts objects. Okay, with which the Earth attracts objects. So what do we know about weight? So weight has a magnitude of mg. Okay, it has magnitude mg, and it is directed towards the center of the earth. Okay, so for any force which is a vector, I need two things, right? Magnitude and direction. So magnitude is mg, where m obviously is the mass of whatever body you're considering, and direction is, we generally take it vertically downwards or to the center of the earth. Okay, so please remember that. Generally, we always take it vertically downwards only. Then you have normal reaction. So what was normal reaction? Okay, I'm not going into the details of this. If you want a detailed explanation of what normal reaction is, how it arises, then you can watch my first video for class 11 students. Okay, normal reaction is a solid contact force. Okay, solid contact force. And what do you know about normal reaction? Okay, so let's write some points. Push only force. Okay, then electromagnetic in nature. All right, and then acts perpendicular or along the common normal. Acts along common normal of contact, and hence it's called normal reaction. Acts along common normal of contact. And finally, what will be the magnitude? The magnitude is self-adjusting. Okay, self-adjusting magnitude, and it can take up any value which is required to essentially stop two solids from occupying the same space. Okay, so this force arises when two solids are trying to occupy the same space. So for instance, if I have my hand and if I'm trying to push my other hand and pushing it against it. So what is happening is that this space, this is also trying to occupy this space, this is also trying to occupy this space. So that is not possible. Both these solids cannot occupy the same space. So they try to oppose each other from occupying the same space. That is how the normal reaction gets originated. Now, similarly, you have a tension force. This force, as you know, acts in strings. Okay. Now, what are the characteristics of this force? So let's quickly write down the characteristics of this force. So maybe we can add another page to list down the characteristics of the tension force. Okay, so let's write it here. So tension. What do I know about tension? The first thing I know is that, again, it is also electromagnetic in nature, just like your normal reaction. It's a pull only force, unlike your normal reaction, which is push only force. So, first you need to know is that this is a pull only force, pull only. Then it is also electromagnetic in nature. Okay, its origin is electromagnetic. How about the direction? Direction, it acts along the length of a string. Okay. Now, how about the magnitude? Again, has a self-adjusting magnitude. Okay, self-adjusting force. What does it ensure? It wants to ensure that the molecules of a string are not separated. So when does tension come into play? Let's talk a little bit about that. So consider any wire like this. Okay. So when I'm trying to pull the two parts of a wire away from each other, that then a force which is existing between these molecules, which is trying to stop them from separating each other. So what is happening is that when I'm trying to pull this part, imagine, so this part is trying to move away from the next part. Now molecules, they have a fixed spacing between them. They have a strong attraction. So what they are doing is that they are not allowing the other molecules to run away. They are pulling it back. So similarly, every part of a string starts pulling every other part of a string to stop it from going away. Okay, so self-adjusting force and let's say ensures constant length of a string. Okay, constant length of a string. So it will take up any value which is required to ensure constant length of a string. Okay. Now, next you had spring force. So how about spring force? Spring force again. All these are contact forces except for weight. Okay, so let's talk about spring force. So spring force is slightly different from your tension and normal reactions. Okay, so spring force turns out can be push and pull both. Okay. Now again, electromagnetic in nature. Please remember that most of the forces, except for the weight or the force of gravity, are always electromagnetic in nature. Okay, acts along the length of a spring. Okay, and now what happens is that it is trying to ensure. Okay, so as I was saying, the force of spring will act along the length of the spring, and how does it act? So that is about the direction. How about the magnitude? The magnitude of spring force Fs is directly proportional to the elongation or compression in the spring and is given by the expression Fs equals minus Kx. Okay. So that is what the spring force is going to do. It can be push or pull both. It is electromagnetic in nature. It acts along the length of a spring and its magnitude is governed by Fs equals minus K times x, where K is called the spring constant. So this is the spring constant and x is the elongation or the compression in the spring or the change in length of the spring. Okay. X is change in length of spring. That is what you need to know about the spring force. Again, one more thing about the normal and tension that I would like to bring to your attention is that these forces can change instantaneously. Okay, these forces can change instantaneously. So that is something very special about these two kinds of forces, normal reaction and your tension. They can change themselves instantaneously. How about the spring force? Spring force and the force of gravity, they can never change themselves instantaneously. So let's write it down here. So this force can never change instantaneously. So you need to remember these properties in order to solve a lot of questions which can be very tricky and involve a spring. Okay, it can never change instantaneously. Okay, so this is what you need to know about spring forces. Now, as far as friction is concerned, friction we will talk about separately in detail. Okay, so I'll leave the discussion right here to these forces only. So let's move on. Moving on. Now let's quickly talk about the Newton's laws. So the first law is obviously, as you all know, the law of inertia. So let's talk about the law of inertia then. So what does this law of inertia tell you? Okay, so the law of inertia tells us that every body continues to be in its state of rest or of uniform motion in a right line unless it is compelled to change that state by forces impressed upon it. So by the way, this language has been chosen very carefully and this is supposed to be Newton's language. Okay. So I thought it is best to present Newton's laws in Newton's language itself so that we don't have any kind of distortion. So it says every body continues to be in a state of rest or in a state of uniform motion along a right line. Right line implies straight line. Okay, so this is what right line means. When Newton said right line, he meant straight line. Okay, unless compelled to change that state by forces impressed upon. In fact, that is why you use the word force. A force is something that is forcing something to change its state of motion or rest. Now, interestingly, this law defines a new inherent property of matter, which is called inertia. Now, before Newton, the widely accepted theory was that of Aristotle. Okay, so that was based on experiences or daily life observations that you make. So Aristotle had proposed that everything eventually has a tendency of coming to rest. Okay, that was a theory which was accepted for many years. It was Galileo who, in fact, pointed out for the first time about inertia, and Newton took his observations further and gave the three laws. And he actually defined the law of inertia. Okay. So this tells us about a new property, which is inertia. What is inertia? Inertia is resistance to the inherent property of any object to resist any change in the state of motion or rest. Okay. Now we also define a new term which is called mass, and mass is defined as a measure of inertia. The more the mass, the more is your inertia. Okay. Now, okay. So this is not the only importance of this law. Now this law also helps us define something called an inertial reference frame, okay, for which these laws of motion are applicable. So you realize in the first line it says that any body which is at rest continues to be at rest, and a body in motion continues to be in motion. Now you also realize from your motion or kinematics review that all motion is relative, right? So when I say a body at rest continues to be at rest, so according to who? So imagine that there was a body, and imagine there were two observers which were looking at it. So observer number one says that the body is at rest, and continues to be at rest. And observer number two maybe feels body is moving with a velocity. Body moving with some velocity. Now, the point is that obviously the same body can be described in two different manners by two different observers. Now, the point is that for both these observers, there may be some observers for which this body will continue to be at rest, and for this guy, the same body will continue to move with a constant v only as long as there are no external forces acting on it. Okay. So that is what the significance of this law is. It defines that such observers are possible. It is possible to have such observers which can see one state of rest or motion of the same body and continue to see that state only. Okay. Now, often people also say that inertia is of two kinds: inertia of rest, inertia of motion. So that is obviously that does not even make much sense, because rest and motion are dependent on the observer, not on the body. Okay, I hope you realize. So a body has an inertia of rest or inertia of motion. That is ridiculous, because body has only one inertia. Whether you are calling it inertia of rest or inertia of motion, that is dependent on you, because motion is dependent on you. So same body, two people can say, one will say it has inertia of rest, one will say it has inertia of motion. So okay, so let's not get misguided by that. And remember that. It just tells you that there is a possibility or such observers exist which will see the body to be in one state, and they will see that as long as there are no forces acting on it, the body will continue to be in that state. Now, these observers for which this law of inertia holds true, are called inertial observers. Okay, so these kind of observers, so observers for which, so observers for which the law of inertia holds true holds true are called inertial observers. Please remember that. So law of inertia also helps you determine who is an inertial observer. So any observer for whom law of inertia holds true is called an inertial observer. And only for such observers can you apply the other laws also. Okay, please remember that. Are called inertial observers. And you realize this law also tells you another small little secret, that it is impossible for you to differentiate between two inertial observers. Okay. So, like in the case where I told that you have observer 1 and observer 2. Now, you don't know which one of these observers is actually at rest and the body is also actually at rest. Maybe you will realize that there could happen two cases. could have been two possibilities. So first one, when this guy says that the body is at rest, maybe the body was at rest, maybe the body's speed was zero and observer's speed was also zero. So he would say that the body is at rest, and maybe this guy was moving with u of 2 was some minus v vector. So this would have said that the body is moving with some v vector. So that could have been one case. Another case you will realize could have been that the body was moving with some v vector. The observer number one was also moving with v vector, and he would have said that the body remains at rest. And observer number two could have been stationary, and he would have said that the body is moving with a velocity of v. Okay, it is impossible to determine which one is at rest, which of your observers is at rest, and which of your observers is moving. The point is, Newton's law tells you that it is impossible to differentiate between a moving observer and another observer which is moving with a constant velocity. Okay, so though that's not something that we use very much, that's something which is very deep and has many deep uh, consequences, so to say. But you don't bother about that much. But you should definitely know this. Okay, that is what the importance and significance of law of inertia is. Okay, biggest importance, it tells us about inertial reference frames, where you can apply and where you cannot apply Newton's laws. Okay. Next, let's talk about the second law of Newton. The second law of Newton is a very fairly simple statement. So if you found that the first law is holding true for you, so if there was no force, you wouldn't have seen any change in the motion, which we will measure as acceleration. So the second law tells you what would be the effect of the force that gets applied. Okay. So now this law says that, first of all, to present this law, first we will define another quantity, another physical quantity, which is called quantity of motion. Okay. Newton began his analysis for the cause of motion by introducing a term quantity of motion. In our modern term, the quantity of motion is called momentum. So we call it momentum in today's term, P equals mv. Okay. Now, Newton's second law says that the change in motion is proportional to the motive force. Motive force meaning the force that is causing this. Okay. Or motive force impressed, and it's in the direction of the right line in which the force is impressed. So one, it says that the change in motion, that means a change in momentum would be directly proportional to the force applied. So F is directly proportional to dp over dt. That is what it is saying. Okay, and the direction would also be same because these are two vector quantities. Mathematically, you have F equals dp over dt. You can write, or you can also write F equals ma. So F equals ma is the second law of Newton. And you must remember, in Newtonian mechanics, m is supposed to be always constant. Okay, so you do not write the term of dm by dt ever. That will give you a wrong result. Okay, remember this. Next, let's talk about the third law. Okay, so application of the second law is helping you determine how the motion of things would work. Okay, it's just a mathematical relation which helps you derive the change in the state of motion with the force impressed. Okay, we will see the application of this later in questions. Firstly, we need to understand the third law, and this law also can be very tricky. A lot of people misunderstand this law. Okay, so what does this law say? This law says that this is the law of action and reaction. This law says that to every action, there is always opposed and equal reaction. So all of you know this. All right. And what does this say? This says that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now, that can be misguiding. Okay. We inherently think that, reaction is something that comes late and action is something which comes first. Okay. And reaction is something which comes later, which is not what Newton meant to convey. Okay. So please get that clear in your head. Action and reaction just implies what Newton meant to say was that if you see any force, which is F vector, you will always see another force which will be minus F vector. Now, the choice of calling them action and reaction is completely up to you. You can call any one of them action, the other can be called reaction. They always appear simultaneously also. Okay, please remember this. So, action and reaction are always simultaneous. So, never get confused about this. They are always simultaneous. Nobody comes first, nobody comes second. And they always act on two different bodies. Okay, you can call any one action and the other can be called a reaction. Now, this law also tells us about the origin of forces. This law tells us that all forces arise from some interaction between two bodies. Okay, so remember this, this is very, very important. Okay, it also helps us realize that forces are real and how to separate them from pseudo forces. So any real force will always have a reaction pair. Okay, for every real force, F, you will have a minus F. Now, there are some things which are pseudo forces, which you guys should know already because you guys are here for revision. So we'll talk about that later also. But for pseudo forces, you'll never have reaction pairs, right? Because they are not real forces. So in case you want to see, if you see a force and you want to judge whether this is a real force or a pseudo force, that's the way to judge it. You look for its reaction pair. If you can find the reaction pair of that force, that is definitely a real force. Otherwise, it's a pseudo force. Okay. Now, as I was saying, this law also tells us about the origin of forces. So, what is this telling us? This is telling us that all forces arise from interaction between two bodies. So, for instance, there is gravitational force. Any gravitational force would come into play when two bodies start to interact through gravitational fields and will apply a force which is gravitational in nature. So, Fg, if this is felt on this, then this guy would feel minus F of G vector. So, what you will also realize is that the nature of action reaction always has to be the same. The reaction of gravitational force is always gravitational. The reaction of a normal reaction will always be a normal reaction. Okay, though there is a word reaction in the word normal. However, when you apply, when you say you have a table and let's say you have a block which is kept on this table, so the block will exert a normal reaction on the table. It will push the table downward, and the table would have applied a negative times normal reaction on this. Okay, these two are action reaction pairs. Mg and N are not as many people think wrongly. Okay, so let's go on correcting those doubts also. So for normal reaction, the reaction pair would also be normal reaction. Similarly, for friction, the reaction pair would be friction. So always remember that all action reaction pairs have to be of the same nature. Why? Because they arise from the same interaction. Okay. So electrostatic forces, they will arise from electrostatic interactions. So reaction of an electric force will only be an electric force, and so on. Okay. So moving forward, so let's go over a problem solving strategy. This is a standard strategy that you must follow, and then you will never get confused or never get any problems wrong if you get enough practice, of course. So first is to study and analyze the system. First, you isolate the system. You identify and isolate a system. So you can have anything. You can have multiple blocks, springs, pulleys, a lot of things which you are trying to analyze. So first of all, you break down and identify a system. Okay, so there are many ways of identifying systems. So either you could have chosen your system as say this one block alone. Maybe you could have taken your system as combination of these two. Maybe you could have taken the spring also in your system. So one, you will identify a system. Now, how do you identify a system? So you will identify a system based on whatever you find convenient. Okay, it is convenience based. You are free to choose your system any which way you feel like. So there are only a few things that you need to know about the system, as you will see in the next step. So the next step requires you to identify all the forces acting on your system. So if you can identify and write all the forces acting on the system, so you should choose that kind of system for which you can easily write all the forces. Okay. So once you have selected your system, then you identify all the forces acting on it. They may be contact or non-contact. Then you draw a FPD. Okay. Finally, you resolve all these forces along appropriate coordinate axes. Again, you are also free to choose yourself any kind of coordinate axis that you feel like. You can choose your origin anywhere. You can choose set of coordinate axes y and x. It is not compulsory that your y has to be vertical and x has to be horizontal. No, you could have chosen your y at certain angle also, x like this. As long as they are perpendicular, you can choose any y and x. You can place your origin also anywhere that you feel like. But once you fix that, then stick to them. Okay. Once you've resolved all the forces along the appropriate coordinate axis, so how do you choose the appropriate coordinate axis? So usually what will happen is that the motion that you want to analyze would be in a certain direction. So make sure that your x or y, one of the axes lie in the direction in which motion is happening. Okay. And in the other direction, usually the motion will not happen. So that will become your other axis. Okay, so that is how you will choose your coordinate axis. Now, once you have wrote all the forces, resolve them along these appropriate coordinate axes, what you need to do is you need to write F equals ma equations for all the directions. Okay. And by the way, if in case you guys are writing messages and wondering why I'm not replying, that is because this is a recorded lecture. So I'm just reminding you again. Okay. So please remember this is a recorded lecture, so I won't be able to reply to any queries that you might have right now. So what you can do is, if you have any questions or any doubts about anything that I'm discussing right now, you can leave that doubt in the comment section below, and I will answer it in the comments itself. Okay. Or maybe I'll take it up in my next live lecture. Okay. Next, once I've written all the F equals ma equations, so I'll see if those equations are enough for me to find all the unknowns. If that is not the case, then I will identify constraints, if any, and write constraint equation. So what are constraints? We'll talk about that also in a while. And once I've written all the equations that I need to find all my unknowns, I will solve the equations and find all the answers. Remember to follow these steps and make sure that you're following them properly. And trust me, you will never go wrong in solving any problem. So why don't we practice? Okay, so I have this practice. So even though this is a recorded session, I would like you guys to take, let's say 2 minutes. Yeah, so I'm gonna wait for 2 minutes if in case you guys are trying this. So there are three blocks kept on a smooth horizontal surface and connected with a light string as shown in the figure. And you have to find the acceleration of each block and the tension in each string. Okay, so go for it. Till then, I will obviously have water. Okay, so 1 minute is almost up. I'll only give you 2 minutes for this because this is a very basic problem, and I expect any 2021 aspirant who is planning to give their J exam in the next 2 months to be solving this quickly. Okay, very basic problem. So you'll also have to bear with my cold because I'm still not feeling 100% all right. Okay, so another 20 seconds to go. I hope you guys have all gotten your answers. This is very quick. And I hope you remember, those of you who have watched my detailed lecture, I had told this trick that though all Newton's laws are defined only for point masses, how are we applying them for big blocks and big systems? We apply them for big blocks and big systems as long as all the constituent masses move with the same acceleration. And I had also told you that as long as any number of masses move with the constant acceleration, when I say constant acceleration, that means both in magnitude and direction, because the acceleration is a vector. So in that case, you can continue taking all of them as one system, and you can continue applying F equals ma equations for that system. So in this case, you realize because of these strings, all these three blocks would always move with the same acceleration. So if this guy is moving with some acceleration A, this guy will also have to move with acceleration A. This guy would also have to move with acceleration A. So I can consider the combination of these three as one system, right? So here, again, this is how I will choose my system. So I will try and choose the simplest of the systems. Okay. The simplest of the systems is if I can choose this, which in this case I can because all the masses are moving with the same acceleration. Remember this. So what is the total mass of my system? The total mass of my system becomes 15 plus 5, that is 20, 20 plus 10, 30 kgs. So 30 kgs of mass and having a net external force of 60 Newton. Finding the acceleration is super simple. Well realize that 60 would be equal to 30 times 8. I can write the entire F equals ma equation for my entire system. So the system appears like this. So there is 30 kg and it is feeling a 60 Newton force. So that will simply tell me that acceleration of all the blocks is 2 meter per second square. All right, super simple. Now once I know that, Now, for tension, I need to select different systems. So the easiest, again, the easiest systems, you could have selected other systems also. I'm just going to select the system that I find easiest to calculate. So one, I can take this one. So for calculating T1, I will take 5 kg as my system. So if I make the FBD of my 5 kg block, what do I see? I see 5 kg block being acted by a force T1 having an acceleration of 2 meter per second square. So if I write the F equals ma equation for this, I will get my answer very, very soon. And that will tell me that T1 equals 5 into 2. Okay, this is my answer number one. For 2, this is part A. And to find T2, what do I do? I will need to select another system. Okay. So I can either select this 15 kg as my system, or 10 kg as my system, or 5 plus 15 as my system. Any which way you feel like. So you are free to choose your own system. The system that I am planning to choose is this. So let's say I will choose this as my system. Both of these masses. The reason for that is the only force acting on this system is T2. So I will get my answer in one go. Okay. I don't need to bother about anything else. So here, now I have my system which is having a total mass of 20 kg and an acceleration of 2 meter per second square, and only force acting on it is T2. If I take that as my system, so I have 20 kgs being acted by T2 and moving with 2 meter per second square. So that will simply give me T2 would be equal to 2 into 20, 14. Okay, I hope these were the answers that you got. And trust me, this is the most efficient way of solving this. So not only solve your questions, try solving them with the most efficient ways possible. There's a reason I'm telling you these tricks. How to select your systems wisely. If you select your systems wisely, trust me, your problem solving will become very fast. Of course, you need to practice also that. Okay. I hope everybody had gotten these answers, and this is how you should have solved it. If you didn't, then try getting used to this. But this, trust me, is the most efficient way of solving. This is the fastest way of getting our answers. Okay, so next we'll talk about equilibrium of particles. Okay, so when do we call a body to be in equilibrium? We call a body to be in equilibrium if the net force acting on an object is zero. So this is the condition for equilibrium, that summation f external must be zero, which obviously implies that summation fx will be zero, summation fy will be zero, and summation fz will also be zero. Now, any kind of equilibrium can be divided into two parts. So one would be called static equilibrium, another dynamic equilibrium. So as I said, any body which is in equilibrium, which means has zero force acting on it, could have been doing two things. Either it could have been at rest, or it could have been moving with a constant velocity. So in case if it was at rest, then its equilibrium is called static equilibrium. And if it was in motion, then its equilibrium is called dynamic equilibrium. And again, as you would have gotten used to by now, that both these terms are dependent on your reference frame. It only depends on your reference frame. Equilibrium is equilibrium. Whether you're calling it static or dynamic depends on your reference frame. That's about it. Now, in case you have a special case of equilibrium under three concurrent forces, okay, so then you can quickly find the forces using Lami's theorem. So the three forces can be related to each other using Lami's theorem like this. So if three forces are causing equilibrium of the body and they are acting as shown in the figure, then these three are related to each other like this with the help of this equation. You can use this to solve your answers for your answers very, very quick. So why don't we try this with a practice problem? Here you've been told that all strings shown in the figure are massless and tension in the horizontal string is 30 Newton. You have to find the weight of the block. Tension here is 30. You have to find the weight of the block. So again, I'll probably wait for 2 minutes for you guys to solve this. Okay. Trust me, 2 minutes is more than sufficient to get the answer of this. Okay. So try this. Think about this. So you will realize that there is one point in that diagram which is an equilibrium under the influence of three forces. Okay. So what's the fastest way of solving this? Lami's theorem. Okay. So my idea is not only to help you revise all the key concepts, but also help you realize the most efficient ways of solving any problem. So that not only are you able to solve problems, but you're able to solve problems faster. Okay. All right. So 1 minute is already up. I hope most of you should have gotten your answers. It's a very basic problem, and I think you guys should be getting these answers within 1 minute. Okay. But I'm still gonna wait for another minute. Okay, just in case. Okay. All right. 30 more seconds. Let's see. Okay. So I hope most of you must have solved this by now. So why don't I just go ahead and quickly answer this? Yep, 2 minutes are over in any case. So let's mark the tensions. So here I already know there is T, and here this T would be equal to W for equilibrium of weight, right? And let's imagine that this is T dash. Now, what is this angle? This angle is 90. What is this full angle? This angle is 135 degrees. So you will also realize this angle would also be 135. Okay. Now, what does Lami's theorem suggest? Lami's theorem suggests that P dash over sine of 90 suggests that P dash over sine of 90 would be equal to P over sine of 135, which would also be equal to 30 over sine of 135. So from here, if you just focus on this, you immediately will realize T equals 30. So that is the weight of the object. One line answers. Okay, nothing to do. I hope this is the answer that you guys had got. And as I said, I will show you the fastest ways of solving the problem. So this is the most efficient way. Whenever you see such a situation, immediately apply Lami's theorem and you will get a one line answer. Okay. All right, let's move ahead. And here you have a heavy block of mass capital M hanging in equilibrium at the end of a uniform rope of mass M and length L connected to the ceiling. You have to find the tension T in the rope at any distance x from the ceiling. So this is the point which has been shown. You have to find the tension at this. What is the tension at this point? Okay. So again, I will give you 2 minutes to try this. So the idea is that I plan to take 2 to 3 sessions per topic in the quick review series, wherein we will quickly not only revise all the key concepts, practice some problems, and then we will also take up previous year mains questions. Okay, so make sure that you are attending the next question. In the next session, I will be taking up the previous year questions of which have been asked in mains. Okay, so please don't miss that out. And right now you should be trying this, and you should here I would like to bring to your attention that if a string is ideal string means it is massless and it is inextensible. In an ideal string or in a massless string rather, you will realize that the tension is always uniform. However, in a string with mass, the tension may or may not be uniform. So especially for a string with mass which is hanging vertically, the tension would definitely vary. Okay, I hope you realize that and you remember that. And how would you calculate the tension? The tension force would be calculated using the F equals ma equations. Okay, remember that. All right, so almost 1 minute has passed. So one more minute. I hope you have your answers. So you have to find the tension as a function of distance x from the ceiling. Let's see if you can do that. Okay. I hope everybody can see the figure. In case you can't, I will just like this. Maybe I'll move my head a little so that you can clearly see the picture. Okay. All right. Hurry up and get your answers quickly. Roughly 10, 15 seconds more to go. That's about it. Okay, so that's it. So this is going to be super simple. This is going to be super simple. As I said, we always try to select a system which will benefit us the most. So the entire trick of fast problem solving is about selecting the right system. Okay, and trust me, I used to be really fast as a student just because I knew how to select my systems intelligently. So the system that I want to select here is this. Okay. So how much mass does our system have? Let's calculate the mass of our system. The mass of our system is mass capital M, of course, and the mass of this hanging portion of the rope, right? This has a length which is L minus X. Mass of this, okay. So if I take this as my system, then let's see, the system appears as if system would appear like this. So you have a system and you have the rest of the rope, and on this system, total mass would be capital M plus, let's call that mass M dash, and the only force would be tension here and mg here. Okay. Here m dash is the mass of that portion of L minus x length, okay, which I can easily calculate. And from the equilibrium of this, from the equilibrium of this, or for equilibrium of our system, I can directly say that T should be equal to m plus m dash. Okay. And all I need to do is write the value of m dash, which should be very, very simple. Assuming it's a uniform rope, which should have been given, yes, uniform rope. Okay, so the mass of the length, mass per unit length would have been m over L. That would have been the mass per unit length. For the length L minus x, this would be the mass, and this is your answer. Okay. Again, most of your answers would be one or two line answers as long as you are choosing your system smartly. Okay. I hope this was the answer that you guys had also gotten, and I hope that if you didn't, then just look at this, try and identify your mistake, and see where you went wrong. And I hope you followed this. Okay. All right. Now let's next talk about constraint relationships. So again, a very important but very confusing part for students. Okay, identify constraints and writing the constraint relationships. So in case you have troubles with this, so pay special attention to this. So first of all, what are constraints? A constraint refers to any restriction or limitation in the motion of any object. Constraint literally in English means any kind of restriction, any kind of constriction. Okay. All constraints or all restrictions in motion will arise from some kind of contact. Okay. So if nobody is in contact with this guy, so this is free to do whatever. It is free to move anywhere. Its motion won't be constrained. The constraints in its motions are when it comes in contact with things. So let's say if it is in contact with this. Now you realize it can only move like this. It cannot go through this. Okay. So there has to be some contact which is restricting the motion of any object. And the equation that governs the equation of that restriction, that mathematical restriction. So mathematical equation describing that restriction of motion is called the constraint equation. Okay. So for instance, I've given you an example that a block kept on ground cannot move into the ground. Okay. We don't write a constraint equation for that separately because that is something which is very obvious. But technically, when you do this, and when you say that there are two forces mg and n, so technically you should have written n minus mg, or mg minus n should be equal to may, and then you would have applied a constraint equation which would have said ay equals 0, and that is when you should have gotten mg equals n. Okay, this would have been your constraint equation. But yeah, if it is very obvious, we don't even write these constraint equations. We need to, however, write them when things are not this obvious. Okay, even for our examples of masses with strains, we immediately wrote that A1 equals A2 equals A3. Otherwise, that would have been a constraint equation. Okay. So wherever it is obvious, we don't write the equations, don't worry. But sometimes we definitely need to write these equations because most of the times, uh, or a lot of times, these constraints won't be very obvious. So generally, in all our problems, we will discuss two kinds of constraints mainly. One is string constraint, and another is wedge constraint. So let's talk about string constraint first. So what are string constraints? So the strings that we study are considered to be ideal. So ideal strings will be inextensible. Okay. Or which means that their lengths cannot be stretched. They cannot be stretched. They cannot be changed. Which means that 2 points on the string must move with the same speed along the length of the string. Now please remember that is the restriction in a motion of anything connected with a string that is being introduced by the string itself. You realize you take any 2 points, it doesn't even matter the ends. Okay, so agreed. If there was something here and there was some mass at the other end, then those are obviously restricted. But actually speaking, any 2 points on the string have this kind of restriction. You could have chosen this point A, this point B. Even these 2 points have a restriction that they have to have the same speed along the length of the string. They may or may not have another different velocities perpendicular to the length, but along the length of the string, they have to have the same speed. Why? Otherwise, A and B would have become either farther away or would have come closer, which would also not be allowed in a tight string. All right. Otherwise, the tension would happen zero. Okay. So this results in the same restriction in the motion of two objects connected to any string. And the mathematical equations describing this restriction is called string constraint equation. Very, very simple. Again, I am just going to quickly revise this. If you want a detailed version of this, you can watch my video for 2022 aspirants on YouTube J channel English, J English channel only. There I have described these in details also. Now, usually there are two methods of obtaining the constraint equations by either using the fact that the total length of the string is constant. So you either write the parts, lengths of different parts of the string, and then you differentiate it and say that the length is constant, so its derivative will be zero. Or second is the virtual work method, which is the definitely easier method. And I'm only going to focus on this because I want you to learn the fastest and the most efficient methods, the simplest methods to get faster results. Okay. So let's go over some examples to understand them. So here, what you will do is for your virtual work method, the key is that you start from one string. Let's get started from this string and let's apply write the tension in it. Now, please note that as long as you are talking about the same string, so this string goes from here to here, from here to here. Okay. So as long as I'm moving over the same string, this tension force will not change. So the tension here would also be T. Next, if the tensions here are T and T, now you will focus on this pulley. These pulleys are also supposed to be ideal. Ideal pulleys are massless. So if the pulley is massless, then the net force acting on the pulley can also not be non-zero. It has to be zero, which will imply that if this tension and this tension is T, both these strings will pull this pulley down by 2T. So this string has to pull it up by 2T to ensure that the net force acting on this pulley is zero. Now, what I will do is I will move along this string only, and since I'm moving along this string only, so the tension should remain the same. The tension here would also be 2T. Okay, I hope you're following that. Then again, talk about this pulley. This string will pull it down with 2T. This string will pull it down with 2T. So it experiences a net downward force of 4T due to these strings. So the upper string has to pull it up by 4T. Okay, to keep the net force on at zero. Now moving on this along this string, the tension here also has to be 4. The tension cannot change. Now it's very simple. Let's assume that this guy goes down by x1, this guy goes down by. Okay, so I've already used x1, x2. So let's write y1. Let's imagine this guy goes down by y1 and this guy goes up by y2. Okay. Now all I need to do is write the work done by tension on both these masses. Okay. All I need to do is write the work done or by tension on all these masses. The work done by tension on 1, how much will that be? So that will be minus t times y1. Why is that? The tension force acting on it is T. The tension force is acting upward, and I've assumed that this is going downward. So please remember, I can assume any direction. I can assume any direction. I have assumed here that this is going downward. If finally my answer, if this mass had to go up, in fact, the answer would come negative automatically. Okay. Similarly, work done by tension on 2, let's see what that is. That would be plus. So there is 4t, 2t, and t. So that is 7t of tension. So that would be 70 times y2 with a plus sign. Why? 70 is acting upward. Y2 is also upward displacement. Okay. So therefore, total work done by tension. How much that will be? That will be minus t y1 plus 7t y2, and this is 0. That is the fact that we will be using. That strings can never do any net work on any system of masses. Idle strings. Okay. If they were elastic strings, then that would have been different. But idle strings, which are inextensible, will never do any network on any system. That gives me a relation between y1 and y2 and tells me y1 equals 7y2. If I differentiate this, I will get a relation between their accelerations or velocities for that matter. So these are going to be my constraint equations, either this or this. These are all called constraint equations. They are telling me that 1 and 2 cannot just have any accelerations. If let's say one has an acceleration of 1 meter per second square, then 2 has to have an acceleration of 7 meter per second square only. Okay, their accelerations are interlinked, they are constrained or they are restricted to have such values only. Okay. Now, in this question, you've been told that A is moving with a speed of v 8 meter per second. You have to find the speed of B. So again, you will do the same thing. Imagine the tension here T. Imagine the tension here T. Now, if the work done by tension is zero, so is the power delivered by tension. So let's see the power delivered by tension on one. The power delivered by tension on A. Let's see how much will that be. So A is moving towards left and tension is acting towards right. So this will be minus 8 times T. T. Similarly, how about power delivered by also power delivered on B? How much will that be? By T on B. Let's see that. So only one component. So I hope you remember power. Power was F dot V. F dot V. So that would be T times V B times cos of 37. Okay. Now you know the total power will also be zero. So all I need to do is write that down. So since total power delivered by string would have to be zero. So now I can say that V cos 37 times T was 8 times. Okay. T and T would have gotten cancelled, and I would have gotten my answer as PV equals 8 over cos of 37. Cos of 37, I hope you remember, is 5 by 4 by 5. 5 over 4, so that would have given me the answer. Okay. I hope you can figure out that the answer now is 10 meters per second. Okay. This is how you will use your constraint equations. Find the virtual work or the work done or the power delivered by tension on all the masses and put that to 0. Okay. All right. So moving ahead, let's take up two more cases. So one is here. You to find the relationship between the acceleration of block 1 and 2. Okay. Quickly try this. Again, for both these cases, I am going to give you 2 minutes. Okay. 2 minutes for both, which means 1 minute per case. Okay. So let's try and solve this as soon as possible. Okay. All right. By now, you should have gotten a hang of it and you should be getting the answers very quickly. All right. Almost 1 minute is up. So I hope you've got the answer for the part A of this problem. Right. Moving to part B. I hope everybody has moved to part B by now and finished part A. Okay. All right. You should be getting done with the part B also now almost. Right. Let's say in another 15 seconds or so. By the way, if you guys are taking more time than that, then you need to work on your speed. Okay. One quick tip from my side. You will need a lot of speed if you want to get a good rank, that is. Trust me, a lot of people are not able to attempt a lot of questions. If your speed is good enough that you're able to attempt a lot of questions, then trust me, you can automatically get a good rank. Okay, that's it. 2 minutes are up. Let's start like always by marking tensions. So here I will start by marking tension T here, going across the same string, T here, T here, second string. This has to make sure that the net force on the pulley is zero. So the pulley is being pulled up by these two strings with a force of 2T upwards. So to ensure that the net force on the pulley is zero, this guy will have to have a tension of 2T. Now let's imagine that this guy moves on down by some x1 and this guy moves towards the right by x2. Now let's find the work done, the total work done on both the masses and put that equal to zero. So I can simply write using, so let's for part one using virtual work method. What can I say? I can say that t times x2, t times x2 minus 2t times x1. Why minus? Again, 2t is acting upwards, x1 is happening downwards, x2 and t both were happening in the same direction. That is why. Minus t and 2t in fact times x1 would be equal to 0. So that would tell me the relation that a2 equals to a1. That is my constraint equation. Okay. How about for this one? So let's try and quickly get this. So tension T, here tension would be 2T, tension here would be 2T. Let's assume this goes up by y2, this goes down by y1. So again, using virtual work method, what will I say? Let's write part B also. Using virtual work method, you won't even have to write all this, right? Because you take the objective exam. I'm used to writing all that because I took a subjective exam. So I always write these statements also whenever I'm solving a problem. Just a habit. So using this virtual work method, what am I getting? I'm getting that 3t times y2, 3t times y2 minus t times y1. Again, I hope you have realized about the directions, okay, because of the upward and negative sign with f and displacement are in the opposite direction and positive sign if both are in the same direction. And this would have given you that the okay, that would have given you that 3a2 this a1 and this is the constraint relation. Okay, this is how you quickly get your constraint relation. All right, let's move forward. Let's have some more practice here. Again, if you have been told the speed of A and you've been asked the speed of B, very simple. So apply the tension here, tension here. So if this is 53, you realize this is pi minus or 180 minus 53. Right. And here that is 37. And let's assume that VP is in this direction. Let's write the powers delivered by the tension. I can also say using virtual work. And realize net power is also zero. So net power would be VA times T times cos of, so VA dot T was for 10 into T into cos of 180 minus to be equal to VB times T times cos of 27. Okay, or plus this plus this equal. Right, the net power has to be zero. So power on one plus power on two must be zero. So that will simply tell you that PB cos of 37 to be equal to 10 times cos of 53. I hope you should obviously know that cos of 180 minus 53 would be minus cos of 53. Okay. Now just substitute all the values. So VB times cos of 37 is 4 by 5 would be equal to 10 times cos of 53 is 3 by 5. This gets cancelled. You will have 2 here, you will have 5 here. The answer that you will get is VB equals 7.5. Okay. I hope this is the answer that you had gotten. Okay. If this was not the answer, then go through the solution, identify your mistake, and make sure you get the right answer. Okay. Finally, let's take a slightly even more complicated one. You have to find the speed of block C in the situation shown in the figure. Okay, so in the situation shown, A and B are moving with speeds of 5 and 2 meter per second downward, and you have to find the speed of B. So first, like always, let's start by marking tensions. So let's mark tensions T here, T here, T here, T here, T here. So this is the same string. As long as the same string is running, so I will always mark the same tension. Now I will move on to the pulleys to make sure that the pulleys do not feel any net force. Tension has to be 2T tension. Now let's write the virtual work method and let's say that the total power delivered by all these strings would be zero. Okay, so now let's imagine that uh, on those two are going down, so the tension is doing negative work. So on this one, let's assume that this is going up by VC, so that tension delivers positive power. Now I could have assumed the direction to be downward also; it would have just come out to be negative. So I am free to do that. By the way, so using again virtual work, I can say that the total power delivered by the strings. See how much that is. So on A, the power being delivered is minus times 5 into 2t. Okay. How about on B? On B, the power getting delivered is minus times 2 times 2t. Minus 2 times 2t. How about on C? On C, the power delivered is T times Vc. Plus T times T. This should be equal to 0. Okay. So what you will get is, let's cancel out all the T's. You will get is Vc equals 10 plus 4 14 meter per second. This is your answer. So I did not take too much time for this because I figured by now you should be getting all of these correct. Okay. So I hope this is the answer that you got and you know how to get this. All right. Just go through it. And that is where I would like to wrap up today's session. Okay, I hope I was able to revise a lot of things and help you with some practice. In the next class, we will revise the rest of the stuff, and maybe we'll have a third session also where we will try and practice all the previous questions. Okay, so I don't know how many sessions I want to take. Uh, Definitely at least two, of course, and not more than three. Let's plan the next session, and there we will take up some previous year questions also. All right. Now, before I wrap up today's session, let me remind you that if you haven't gotten your Plus subscriptions, this is how you should be getting them. Go to the Plus section of your app, select your goal as IITJ, and click on the subscription button. Okay. And when you click on that Get Subscription button, you will be redirected to the payment page where you will have an option which will say, do you have a code? This is my code. This is the code that you can use there and get yourself a 10% discount on all these subscriptions. Okay. Now, you will realize when you click on proceed to pay, you also have no cost EMI options available for any plan which is 6 months and above. So, for these plans, you have no cost EMI options available. Okay. Next, you should be enrolling very fast if you plan to enroll in any of these courses that J English team is taking on the Plus. Okay, so three courses, ongoing Plus courses for Mains and Advanced 2022, that is for class 11 topics. Four courses for JEE Mains and Advanced 2021, that is class 12 topics. Make sure you're joining them as soon as possible, getting your subscriptions fast. Okay. Finally, if you like today's video, then press the like button. And if in case you can't afford this subscription, then don't forget to just keep following us on the J English channel and share this video with all your friends who you think would need the help. And this help is completely being given to you by Unacademy completely for free. Okay, so Unacademy believes that first of all, we started this channel so that language should not be a barrier for any of the student for learning. We also believe that even their financial status should not restrict them from learning. Okay, so share it with as many people as you can. Uh, Help them, gain from this totally awesome quality content completely free of cost. Okay, don't forget to press the bell icon if you want to receive more notifications of amazing lectures like this. And the PDF of all the notes, I think you would find that previously also. You don't really need to download PDF. You just need to quickly go through the video itself and practice with it. Okay. Then, if you're following us on the J English channel of YouTube, don't forget to connect with us on the Telegram app using this link. Okay. So join the channel and keep getting notifications of all the amazing sessions happening on the J English channel. Finally, before I leave you, before I take your leave, let me remind you one last time that this is my code RD Live. Don't forget to use this code the next time you plan to get yourself the Unacademy subscription and enjoy a 10% off on all your subscriptions. All right, so that is it from my side. So now that you have gone through this lecture, go and practice some more problems on your own and make sure that this now stays with you till the JE at least. Okay. So that I will sign off. You guys keep studying hard and good luck. Bye bye.